I remember the exact tone more than the words. Not explosive anger. Not drunken theatrics. Just that casual, careless sharpness my brother had perfected over the years, the kind that landed like a joke, but never really was one. We were sitting around the dining table at my parents' house, plates half finished, conversation drifting in the way it always did. Familiar topics, familiar complaints, familiar hierarchies. Then he said it. Honestly, we should just get rid of the useless people in this family. There was a small pause, the kind that usually signals someone will push back. No one did. He leaned back in his chair, glanced directly at me, and added, almost lazily, "You're first." My mother laughed first. A short, startled sound that quickly turned comfortable. My father followed with that soft chuckle he uses when he doesn't want to take responsibility for anything being said. "All you're good for is your money anyway." That part wasn't shouted. It was delivered with absolute certainty. Something in my chest tightened, but not in a dramatic way. It felt mechanical, like an old reflex being triggered. My body reacting before my mind caught up. I didn't respond. Not because I was stunned. Not because I was hurt. But because nothing about the moment felt new. I'd heard variations of it for years, always softened, always disguised, always wrapped in humor. Tonight it was simply clearer. I became strangely aware of small details. The sound of cutlery touching porcelain. The faint hum of the refrigerator. My brother's foot bouncing under the table. My father avoiding eye contact with everyone. They kept talking. About vacations. About expenses. About how difficult things had become, as if nothing significant had been said. I noticed something else too, a shift I couldn't quite name at first. It was subtle but real. For the first time, I wasn't absorbing the dynamic. I was watching it. Watching how easily my role had been defined, how confidently they had reduced me to a function. How comfortable everyone seemed inside that arrangement. Useful, useless, contributor, burden. The categories had long since hardened. And sitting there, listening to them discuss costs I quietly covered, risks I quietly carried, obligations I had quietly signed, I felt something unexpected. Not anger, distance. Because beneath the emotional theater of family, there was another reality entirely, one built from contracts, guarantees, signatures, and numbers. Reality doesn't care about tone. Reality is very literal. I finished my meal in silence. Not tense silence. Not wounded silence, just absence. No one seemed particularly concerned. That was, after all, my usual posture. 3 days later, I was sitting in my apartment, staring at a document I had opened and closed half a dozen times. Personal guarantee withdrawal request. The language was dry, procedural, almost boring. No mention of humiliation, no reference to family, no emotional vocabulary whatsoever, just structure. I read it again carefully, then signed. Sent. There was no dramatic satisfaction in the act. No cinematic feeling of reclaiming power. It felt administrative, like updating an address. Which, in a way it was, an update to reality. The call didn't come from my parents, it came from the bank, not to me. To them. I wasn't present for that conversation, but I didn't need to be. The sequence was predictable. Confusion first. Then urgency. Then the slow realization that what they had assumed was emotional support was, in fact, financial liability backed by a very specific individual. Me. My phone began vibrating an hour later. My brother's name, then my mother's, then my father's. I let them ring. Not out of spite, but because for the first time, I didn't feel obligated to rush into the familiar role of stabilizer, fixer, absorber of consequences. Eventually, I answered. My father's voice was tight. "There must be some misunderstanding." "There isn't." A pause. "You know what this does to us?" "I do." Another pause, heavier this time. "You could have talked to us." That sentence hung there, loaded with implication. I almost laughed at the irony. Years of conversations where my value had been clearly explained to me, yet suddenly dialogue had become essential. "I've been talking to you for a long time." Silence. Real silence this time. Not dismissive, not bored, uncertain. There was no yelling, No accusations, no theatrical confrontation. Just an uncomfortable recalibration taking place somewhere on the other end of the line. Because systems had entered the room. And systems don't laugh. Nothing spectacular happened after that. No apologies worthy of movies. No emotional breakthroughs. No dramatic reconciliation scenes. Just adjustments. Voices that had once carried easy certainty now carried caution. Comments that once came freely now arrived filtered. Not warmer, but different. And strangely, that was enough. Because reclaiming dignity didn't feel like victory. It felt like alignment. Like reality finally matching what had always been true.